On today's episode, I wanted to drop some inspiration this week around developing the skill to be unbothered about what others think of you. I did. I really wanted to talk about this week. And the reason why I felt the need to discuss this is because I strongly feel that many people are overwhelmed and they're in some form of mental and emotional bondage by the opinions of other people. And let me tell you something, when you are in that mental and emotional bondage of always worrying about what other people think of you, it causes you to develop people pleasing behaviors. You find yourself constantly seeking validation from other people. It prevents you from trying anything new or different. You find yourself fitting into other people's expectations of you, and that only causes you to show up inauthentic. You avoid making decisions independently, and you find yourself operating in this energy of always having to prove yourself. And the reason why this is so vital around divorces and breakups is because when it comes to these topics, it can come with a lot of judgment. It can come with a lot of judgment and social stigma, and that can cause a person feeling like they're a failure. They can find themselves living in shame and or guilt. They wonder if they're capable of being loved. They even question if they have the capacity to even handle a marriage or a relationship due to the outcome of this one not working or even other relationships from their past. Not to mention the disappointment that they feel for not meeting their own expectations or even those of others, which can cause them to remain in a state of self doubt longer than necessary. And when it comes to the topic about caring what other people think, you often hear the response of, well, you shouldn't care about what others think, and other people's opinions don't matter. And while I'm not here to fully disagree with that statement, because I actually get the reasoning behind it, I also equally believe that it's just not that simple to do in terms of turning off what people think about you. And the reason why it's not that simple is because it's actually natural to care about other people's opinions. It is. And it will be highly impossible to completely avoid and disregard and ignore what others think 100% of the time. All right. Not to mention that caring what others think could be helpful for you, right? It actually can. However, what I'm referring to today is when caring so much becomes more of a burden rather than a benefit, meaning that this burden of caring too much becomes so addictive and obsessive where you find yourself so overly concerned on how others perceive you, where that distraction robs you of your next chapter. And when others' opinions rob you from achieving your potential, pursuing your goals, and becoming the person you aspire to be, then we got to make a shift. A shift has to take place. And that shift is going from the burden of being unbothered to the benefit of being unbothered. And so, what does this mean when I say shifting from the burden of being bothered to the benefit of being unbothered? Okay. This means that the position that people's opinions hold in your life needs to be reassessed and reduced so that you may reprioritize and reclaim how you want to author your own story going forward. That's what it means. And the reason why I call it unbothered is because of what it does mean. So when we talk about being unbothered, this is what I'm referring to. I'm referring to not being so affected and influenced by others and their opinions, right? I'm also referring to cultivating mental and emotional resilience where external influences have minimal impact on your well being. It also means recognizing that your sense of worth is relied on what comes from within rather than relied upon external validation and approval. And here's another thing on what being unbothered means. It doesn't mean that you're an uncaring individual. That's not what it means. However, you will create a healthy detachment as well as a healthy distance from things and or people that will attempt to distract you from your priorities and values. And I'm going to be honest, I truly believe that if you desire to experience all of who you are, all of what you can have, all of what you can do, and all of who you can become, then there's a level of unbotheredness that you must obtain. It is. Because in my opinion, and this opinion is just based on the amount of people that I've talked to and even people that I've worked with, because I'm in the service of helping people. And so you have a lot of conversations with different people. And one of the things that I feel very strong about is that many people really aren't living the lives that are destined for them because the weight of what others think holds so much significance and authority that they would rather disregard their own path due to fear of judgment or even societal expectations. Even if they don't admit this, even if they say, I don't care what other people think, I still believe that deep down many people do. You know, in full transparency, there was a time where I just cared too much about what people thought of me, right? And I used to claim that I didn't care, but deep down, I really did. And that was actually a huge reason on why I was stuck in my story for 5 years post my divorce. You know, I talk about that story all the time on how I was stuck 5 years. And it wasn't just because I was totally unaware that I was, right? I mean, that had some truth in it, but another truth was that I cared too much about what others thought of me and how they perceived me. And because of that, I wanted to maintain a specific persona. I wanted to maintain a certain image. I wanted to impress certain people. I wanted to look good or have a certain image or a highlight reel on social media. And that caused me to remain in a chapter of my life much longer than I should have. And in order to transition out of that chapter that I was in, I had to step into and develop this energy of being unbothered about what people thought. I did. And for those who are listening right now, maybe you are in some bondage of being so concerned about what others may think of you. You know, maybe you feel judged from others that you're divorced. Maybe you feel that people are looking down on you because they think you couldn't keep your marriage together. Maybe you've listened to some relationship guru or gurus that make you doubt your own decisions. Maybe you're worried about cultural and religion and societal expectations and how they perceive your life choices. Maybe you fear disappointing those who had high hopes for your relationship or your marriage. Or maybe you're so concerned on if maybe certain friends or certain family members will react to your decision. And I'm going to be honest with y'all, because here's two truths about this. The first truth is that people will judge you, and there's just really nothing you can do about it because people judging is totally unavoidable. All right. The second truth is that you don't have to accept their judgments as truth. Okay. Like their judgment is not law. Remember, that's their truth from their lens, from their perspective, from their own understanding, and not yours. And so when you give a person's opinion that much authority, and when that opinion holds so much weight and significance over you, it will unconsciously control you and dictate your direction as well as your decisions. And here's what you don't want to do. You don't want to come this far only to let what others think stop you. You don't want to do that. You know, when it comes to the conversations around divorce, or some of the conversations that you might hear that people say is that getting a divorce is easy to do. It's an easy decision. People don't work at it no more. People don't try anymore. They just go and get a divorce as if you just woke up and made that decision. However, what's important to know is that when people make blanket statements like that, those are people who have never been through one. Because I can assure you this. I can assure you that those who took their marriage seriously can admit that making the decision to divorce was probably one of the hardest decisions that they've ever had to make. And so what does this mean? This means that if this was the end result for you, I can almost assure you that it took an immeasurable amount of courage to do this. And so if that's the case, why stop here? Divorce isn't the story of your life. It's a chapter. And seeing it that way helps you be your own judge on how you define your journey going forward. And that's really important to remember. And so to help with reducing on what others think and to limit the weight of their opinions on your life, I want to give you 5 questions to ask yourself that I recommend for you to keep in rotation so that you may lean more into the space of being unbothered. All right. The first question that I want you to ask yourself when you are overly concerned about what people think of you is that I want you to ask yourself, what is it that I truly want going forward from this experience? That's the first question. The first question is, what is it that I truly want going forward from this experience? And when it comes to this question, this is where I want you to think about who you desire to be. What kind of person do you want to show up as? What character traits, what morals, what attributes that you really want to embody? What are your desires? What are your goals? And what are your aspirations? What kind of relationships do you want to cultivate? And I want you to think about these aspects independently of others' expectations of you. So in other words, I want you to mute the noise of what everybody else think you should do and who you should be. And I want you to just center in on who do you want to be? What would make you proud if you did this for yourself? And that's the first question that I want you to ask yourself when you are becoming overwhelmed of what people think about you. I want you to ask, what is it that I truly want going forward from this experience? The second question that I want you to ask yourself is, how does this opinion serve me? Okay, that's the second question. How does this opinion serve me? So this opinion that you're overwhelmed with, this opinion on what other people think about you, that opinion that you're giving so much energy to, I want you to ask yourself, how is it serving me? Is it helping me? Or is it hindering my progress? Does this opinion positively contribute to the direction on where I want to go and what I want to do and who I want to be? Does it add to me or does it subtract from me? And that's important to ask yourself. That's the second question. How does this opinion serve me? The third question that I want you to keep in rotation when you find yourself so concerned about what other people think of you is, what will happen to my life in the long run if I give the opinions of others so much power and influence over my decisions and actions? Okay, that's the third question. The third question is, what will happen to my life in the long run if I give the opinions of others so much power and influence over my decisions and my action? And in this question, I want us to play the long game when it comes to our life, because when you give others' opinions this kind of authority, it's important to know what will the long-term impact be over your life when doing so. So let's go back to question number 1, right? Let's go back to question number 1 when I asked, what is it that I truly want going forward from this experience? And based on your response, I want you to think a year from now, 5 years from now, or even 10 years from now. And I want you to think about the constant sacrifices and the continuous compromising that's been done to align with others' opinions of you. And I want you to ask yourself, is it worth it? And how much is it really costing you? Okay. And so that's the third question that I want you to ask yourself. I want you to ask yourself, what will happen to my life in the long run if I give the opinions of others so much power and influence over my decisions and actions? All right. The fourth question that I want you to ask yourself is, what am I afraid of? That's the fourth question. The fourth question is, what am I afraid of? When you are overwhelmed with what others think, that comes from some form of an underlying fear. And it's important to address that with a level of honesty. Earlier I mentioned that I wanted to keep an image. I was afraid of what people would perceive me as. I wanted even some form of external validation. Like there were some reasons on why I felt the need to maintain a certain image because I was afraid of something else. And so I want you to ask yourself, what am I afraid of? Are you trying to impress certain people? Is it a deep need for external validation? Do you fear being rejected? Is it family expectation? Is it the desire to fit in? Is it the comparison to other people? Is it perfectionism? Is it fear of failure? Is it a level of doubt of your own worth? And so what happens is you look for other people for reassurance. Is it a lack of confidence or even low self-esteem? I mean, this is a real thing. I mean, there's a reason why we are overwhelmed with what other people think. And so it's important to really ask yourself, what am I afraid of? And give yourself a level of radical honesty in doing so. There's no need to attempt to act as if this isn't it, if that's really the thing, right? So I want you to challenge yourself on what is it that you're afraid of when it comes to other people's opinions of you, all right? And that's the fourth one. And so the fifth question I want you to think about is this the truth or just somebody else's opinion? All right, that's the fifth question. The fifth question is this the truth or just somebody else's opinion? It's easy to take someone's opinion and define it as truth. It is. And what happens is we make somebody else's opinion become so factual. However, have you ever challenged that opinion? Have you ever asked yourself, well, what makes their opinion so valid? What credibility do they have? And what evidence do they have to support that? Because a lot of the time when, we forget that we have a mind of our own. We forget that, yeah, that may be your truth, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's really the truth. And so let's start challenging some of these opinions that are overwhelming us to the point where we're not moving forward. Okay. And so that's the fifth one. The fifth one is this the truth or just somebody else's opinion? All right. Now, I know I said I had 5 questions, but I got another question that I want you to ask and keep in rotation as well. Okay. So this is a bonus one that I want to give you. And so the 6th question that I want you to ask yourself is, whose opinion truly matters? That's the last question. That's the bonus question. Whose opinion truly matters? One of the things that I mentioned earlier was that it's natural to care about other people's opinions, which is why when people say, I don't care what anyone thinks, I think that that can be very extreme to the point where we believe that nobody's opinion has any form of significance. So I don't really think that's necessarily accurate. However, here's the thing. Just because it's natural to care about other people's opinions doesn't mean that every one opinion matters. Okay? And I'm convinced that those who don't hold a great significance in our lives can often hold more influence over us than they should. And so my recommendation for this question, as you ask yourself this question, is for you to reflect on whose opinions hold great significance in your life and why. And from there, I want you to ask yourself, am I prioritizing their views over my own well-being and growth? Okay, and that's very important. And that goes into question number 1, right? When you ask yourself, what is it that I truly want? See, when you're very clear on what you want going forward, then these type of questions helps you realize, okay, it's time to make a shift because I'm so bothered about what other people think that I need to now develop some form of skill of being unbothered. Okay. And so those are my 6 questions that I want you to keep in rotation, that I want you to ask yourself, because it would be crazy for me to believe that you can just cut a switch off of caring what other people think. However, what we must also understand is that even though some people's opinions do matter and they hold a great significance to us, we still have to be mindful of making sure that Nobody opinions hold so much weight where it's taking us away from where we want to go and who we can become. All right. So please make sure that you are following me on my social media handles. My Instagram is I am Tanya Carter. My Facebook is Tanya Carter. My YouTube is Tanya Carter. And I will drop everything down in the show notes as well. And also, please make sure that you are subscribed to the podcast so that you can receive notifications on when the podcast will drop. And also leave a review. If you know that this podcast has been very influential to you and has been a help to you on your journey of evolving after a divorce or even after a breakup, please head over to Apple or Spotify to leave me a review. And last but not least, share this information. If you know somebody that is very, very concerned about what people think about what they should do and who they should become, then share this link to them so that it can be a blessing for them. All right. So thank you all again for tuning in with me this week. You all have a wonderful and an amazing week, and I will see you next time.